On February 4, 2009, the identity of Dr. Aribert Heim, known as the most wanted Nazi war criminal, was finally established. Hiding in Egypt under the name Tarek Hussein Farid, he was one of the prominent Nazis who escaped punishment after Germany's defeat in World War II. This event once again brought the topic of the Third Reich to the forefront of global media, and our today's episode is dedicated to this ominous page in history. Watch this video until the end and learn how such a small and pathological group like the Nazis managed to seize power in a major European country, what atrocities its leaders became infamous for, what incredible achievements the Nazis made in the field of military technology and mass control, as well as what assistance Hitler received from Stalin, Churchill, and the Vatican. So let's get started.
News, copyright.
Would be broken up in the open field.
In the annals of history, the echoes of past atrocities serve as harrowing reminders of humanity's capacity for both greatness and darkness. As we delve into the secrets and revelations unearthed from the archives of the past, we are confronted with unsettling truths and sobering lessons. From the shadowy alliances between regimes and institutions to the clandestine operations shrouded in secrecy, the narrative of history unveils a tapestry of intrigue and amoral reckoning. At the cost of thousands of lives, join us as we embark on a journey to explore the untold stories behind the veil of secrecy, reflecting on the consequences of silence, complicity, and the enduring imperative to confront evil before it consumes us all. Welcome to a chronicle of revelation and reflection, where the past serves as a cautionary beacon, illuminating the path forward. So, let's go over some facts you probably didn't know. Historical background. The first half of the 1920s in Germany was marked by social, economic, and political instability. The immediate cause of this was Germany's defeat in World War I, which led to the collapse of the German Empire. In its place emerged the Democratic Republic. The new political structure of Germany came to be known as the Weimar Republic. In June 1919, the authorities of the Weimar Republic were forced to sign the Treaty of Versailles. It imposed sanctions on Germany for instigating World War I. Just think about these numbers. Germany was obligated to pay the victors 269 billion gold marks, roughly equivalent to about 100,000 tons of gold. For comparison, consider that the entire gold reserve of the United States at that time was only 8,000 tons, and countries like France, Russia, and Italy had barely 2,000 tons of gold each. But let's return to Germany in the 1920s. The devastation caused by the war led to an economic crisis, insane hyperinflation, and devaluation. This situation gave rise to political movements calling for the overthrow of the new government. Members of these movements capitalized on the dissatisfaction of the German population after World War I. They stoked and provoked outrage, sometimes advocating violence. The Nazi Party was one of many small, radical political movements that emerged in Germany during those years. It captured the attention of all Germans only in November 1923, when the Nazis, under the leadership of Adolf Hitler, attempted a violent seizure of power. The failed coup became known as the Beer Hall Putsch and entered history books. After the failure of their violent approach, Hitler and the Nazis changed tactics. From the mid-1920s, they focused on trying to win elections. And that's what we'll talk about in the next part. Stalin's role. Hitler was able to come to power only because the German communists, led by Thalmann and following Stalin's instructions, divided the strong socialist movement in Germany. It was on Stalin's orders that the Comintern, which included the German Communist Party, called on it to reject any agreement with the Social Democrats against fascism and focus fire on the Social Democrats. The German Communist Party complied with this directive. In the 1930s, Stalin even supported Nazism and fascism in Europe. They were necessary to him to combat the Social Democrats, the main rivals of the Communists. Moreover, they were necessary to Stalin for the conquest of capitalist Europe by the Nazis. "Let Hitler march through Europe," Molotov said, to prepare the ground for the world revolution dreamed of by the so-called liberators Bolsheviks. In the film If War Were to Break Out Tomorrow, 1939, it is directly stated how we will liberate Europe, although it is not said from whom. So, how were the forces distributed in Germany on the eve of the Nazis' rise to power? In the Reichstag elections in May and December 1924, the NSDAP received 6.5% and 3% of the votes, respectively, and in both cases the first place remained with the Social Democratic Party of Germany, 20.5% of the votes. On May 20, 1928, the NSDAP suffered a crushing defeat, 2.6% support and only 12 seats in the parliament out of 491. The Social Democrats retained first place. In the elections on September 14, 1930, the NSDAP, with 18.25% support, took second place, after the Social Democrats with 24.5%. And even in the elections on July 31, 1932, the Communists and Social Democrats together collected 13.5 million votes, while the National Socialists received only 10.5 million votes. On January 30, 1933, the President of Germany, Hindenburg, convinced that the Communists and Social Democrats were engaged in mutual strife, instructed Hitler to form a government. Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of the Weimar Republic, and on February 3, 1933, in the presence of the leadership of the Reichstag, he declared as the goal of his policy the conquest of new living space and the ruthless Germanization of other countries. The myth that Hitler came to power democratically has no basis whatsoever. In the Weimar Republic, the Chancellor formed the government, appointed by the Reich president at his discretion. It did not even require the approval of the Reichstag. As already mentioned, Hindenburg appointed Adolf Hitler as Chancellor because of the squabbles of other political forces. As for the election results, the Nazis never obtained a majority until they seized power. And there is no doubt that under normal circumstances, if Stalin had not banned to the German Communist Party to cooperate with Social Democrats, the Nazis would have continued to lose popularity until they returned to the role of a small marginal party. Stalin not only facilitated Hitler's rise to power, but also welcomed cooperation with Germany shortly after Hitler came to power. In 1934, harboring deep contempt for the weak democratic governments of Europe, he exclaimed in a fit of sympathy about Hitler, "Now that's a leader." Churchill's role. Few people remember the Anglo-German Naval Agreement of 1935, which allowed Germany to build a naval fleet, violating the Treaty of Versailles. This agreement, approved by Britain, effectively untied Germany's hands and made it clear that Britain would not hinder its military buildup. This treaty marked a significant departure from the restrictions imposed on Germany after World War I and contributed to Germany's rearmament in the lead-up to World War II. Thus, this agreement left an indelible mark on history, demonstrating Britain's deliberate desire to create a strong competitor in Europe to the communist threat from the East and sow the seeds of future war between Germany and Soviet Russia. Additionally, we recommend reading Churchill's book, The Gathering Storm, which provides a detailed account of Hitler's rise to power. Some researchers claim that Churchill encouraged Hitler's rise to power to create a powerful enemy for the USSR. Racial theory. The racial theory adopted within the framework of Nazi ideology and politics includes the concept of the Aryan race, its biological and cultural superiority over other races, which are viewed as inferior, racial anti-Semitism, the conspiratorial idea of world Jewry as the main enemy of the German nation, and Slavic phobia. The concept of racial hygiene implied the necessity of dividing people into representatives of the superior race and inferior elements, and the need for corresponding selection. According to this concept, the former were to be artificially supported, while the reproduction of the latter was to be prevented. Mixing of races was seen as having undesirable consequences, mongrels. This concept also required the sterilization or elimination of alcoholics, epileptics, individuals with various hereditary diseases, and the mentally deficient. The pursuit of racial hygiene manifested in state programs of compulsory extermination of various categories of citizens under the Nazi regime. It should be noted that the idea of selecting individuals based on hereditary traits dates back to antiquity and is discussed, for example, in Plato's Republic, as well as later in Thomas More's Utopia and Tommaso Campanella's City of the Sun. The Nazi concept of the Aryan race evolved from an earlier supremacist race concept supported by many racial theorists of humanity. Nazi theorists esteemed Arthur de Gobineau's essay, An Essay on the Inequality of the Human Races, 1855, so highly that selected excerpts from it were published in popular racial anthologies in the 1930s and included in mandatory school textbooks in Germany. The selection of individuals, known as eugenics, captivated the minds not only of Nazis but also of many other countries, including the United States. At the International Congress on Eugenics held in New York in 1932, one specialist explicitly stated,
"There is no question but that if the United States sterilization law were applied more extensively, we should within a century largely eliminate at least 90% of crime, insanity, feeble-mindedness, sexual perversions, and many other forms of degeneracy and defective mentality. Thus, within a century, our asylums, prisons, and institutions for the feeble-minded would be largely cleared of their present victims of human woe and suffering."
Did you know that in some states of the USA, the option of replacing life imprisonment with voluntary castration is provided for individuals who have committed sexual crimes, and this practice continues to this day? The first state to adopt eugenic laws was Indiana in 1907. Some of the most severe eugenic laws existed in North Carolina. For example, sterilization was automatically performed on all individuals with an IQ below 70. Sterilization among the poor was also encouraged. They were even paid a $200 bonus for this operation. Nazis and the occult. Occultism, as a form of preaching hidden and unknown forces and phenomena in humans, the cosmos, and nature, played a key role in the activities of the leadership of the Third Reich. Even in the inception of Nazism, the occult Thule society played a significant role, dealing with mystical aspects of the origin of the Germans. According to Rudolf von Sebottendorf, in 1933, it was to the members of the Thule society that Hitler came at the very beginning, and it was the people from Thule who joined him first. By the way, did you know that some historians believe that the leadership of the Thule Society intentionally promoted Hitler and the Nazi Party to gain absolute power over the German people through them? These plans were thwarted by Hitler himself, who emerged from under the influence of his recent patrons. Upon coming to power, the Nazis provided support to a wide range of pseudosciences, including astrology, Himmler's world ice theory, and the doctrine of racial purity, which became officially recognized in state-funded spheres. The Third Reich generously financed pseudo-scientific research and expeditions, including well-known expeditions to Tibet, the search for Shambhala, and the Holy Grail. In Nazi Germany, the value of scientific thought and objective knowledge was denied, and the only basis for historians and scientists was declared to be so-called German patriotism. The key center of occult activity became the pseudoscientific organization SS Ancestral Heritage, Ahnenerbe, which included up to 50 institutes and dealt with a wide range of issues from dowsing to atomic weapons. We extensively discussed this organization in a separate video, the link to which has now appeared in the top right corner of the screen. Check it out. It will be interesting. Wunderwaffe. When the Third Reich realized the inevitability of defeat in the war, they could only hope for a miracle. This is exactly what was done. The term miracle weapon was coined, which Nazi propaganda used to calm the minds of the population until the last days of the war. In 1943, Reich Minister of Armaments Albert Speer declared, "The prolonged war will be won through miracle weapons." The Nazis indeed managed to achieve breakthroughs in many areas of scientific thought, creating or approaching the creation of advanced technologies and weaponry for their time. Let's briefly recall the main ones. 1. Jet aircraft. The use of jet fighters by the Nazis at the end of the war dealt a significant blow to the Allies' aviation. However, only a small number of these fighters, about 2,000 in total, were produced in Germany from 1942 to 1945, and they faced shortages of pilots and fuel. Therefore, their use was quite limited, and German jet aircraft also suffered from numerous technical problems. 2. recoilless anti-tank rocket launchers. Among the most well-known projects of wonder weapons were the Panzerschreck and Faustpatron, also known as Panzerfaust, anti-tank rocket launchers. Initially, RPG Panzerfaust had a short firing range, about 75 meters, which made them of little use in field warfare, and there were no measures to counter the new weapon. However, rapid improvement of the weapon, as well as the advancement of fronts in areas with high population density and dense urban areas, changed the situation. The use of handheld rocket launchers inflicted huge losses, up to 30%, 35% or more, on the armored forces of the anti-Hitler coalition, especially in cities. 3. Winged and ballistic missiles. The winged missile V-1, launched from June 1944, was the world's first serial winged missile. Even further was the first serial ballistic missile V-2. However, the effectiveness of the combat use of the V-2 was very questionable. The missiles had low accuracy. Only 50% of the launched missiles hit within a 10 kilometers radius, and low reliability. Out of 4,300 launched missiles, more than 2,000 exploded on the ground or in the air or malfunctioned in flight. According to various sources, launching 2,000 missiles aimed at destroying London over 7 months resulted in the deaths of over 2,700 people, meaning 1 or 2 people were killed by each missile. Nevertheless, the communication of the Allies suffered significant damage and large material losses. 4. Submarines. Advanced submarines of the 17th type were developed, a German experimental series of small submarines equipped with a Walter engine, which allowed them to develop high speeds underwater and consume less oxygen, allowing the submarine to stay submerged longer, and submarines of the 21th type, a revolutionary model for its time, which influenced all post-war submarine building. 5. Nuclear weapons. According to some researchers, German nuclear scientists were able to enrich uranium and create a working model of a nuclear explosive device with an incomplete chain reaction, fizzle, and a TNT equivalent of about 100 tons. Rainer Karlsch, a German historian, made headlines in 2005 with his book Hitler's Bomb, claiming that Nazi Germany tested nuclear bombs in 1944 and 1945 on the Baltic island of Rügen and in Thuringia. 6. Flying discs. Another aspect of the development of Wunderwaffe was Operation Haunebu, a series of top-secret German projects which are said to have been developed during World War II. It is reported that these projects included the creation of flying discs and other advanced flying machines, and some believe that they could have been based on extraterrestrial technologies. 7. Psychotropic weapons. This area includes the highly secretive Thor's Hammer project. There are rumors that it was a device emitting waves at a special frequency that influenced the psyche of people in the affected area. Modern scientists acknowledge that such a type of impact is theoretically possible. Numerous eyewitness accounts survive of the strange persistence of Germans in defending the cities of Ruhr and Alstadt, on the outskirts of which there were mysterious antenna fields. The resistance of German garrisons was broken by the Allies only after these antennas were destroyed by bombardment. Last days. Starting from the defeat at Stalingrad, it became increasingly clear to many figures in the top echelons of the Third Reich that the inevitable defeat of the regime was imminent. The most far-sighted began to ponder their future long before the artillery bombardment sounded over Berlin. It is believed that one of the first and most forward-thinking was the chief of the Nazi Party Chancellery, Martin Bormann. As early as 1943, he planned Operation Eagle Flight to smuggle looted gold, precious stones, and other valuables to safe havens around the world. Bormann's second operation, codenamed Scorched Earth, aimed to provide a secure refuge for Hitler and his inner circle, ensuring a place from which to lead the post-war revival of Germany and Nazism. But Bormann wasn't the only one thinking about salvation. Secret conspiratorial evacuation routes were developed for SS members and Nazi Party officials with the involvement of the Vatican and the Red Cross, which provided war criminals with clean documents. Thus, many executioners and criminals found safety after the war in Chile, Argentina, or other Latin American countries. Among those who escaped justice were the sadistic Dr. Josef Mengele and the so-called architect of the Holocaust, Adolf Eichmann. However, Eichmann's fate was intervened by Mossad, ensuring him the deserved punishment, as we discussed in our episode dedicated to Israeli intelligence. Find it on our channel, it's interesting. And what about Hitler? Historians are divided in their opinions. Some believe that he and his wife Eva Braun managed to escape to Argentina, where he supposedly lived until his death in 1962. We thoroughly examined all versions and their evidence in a separate episode. Find it on our channel, it's worth it. The Third Reich and the Vatican. Newly declassified documents from the archives of the Vatican, released in March 2020, fell into the hands of researchers. Pope Pius XII, formerly Eugenio Pacelli, led the Catholic Church from 1939 to 1958 and earned the disgraceful nickname Hitler's Pope for his loyalty to the Third Reich. It is worth noting that in 1933, a treaty known as the Reichskonkordat was signed between Germany and the Holy See. Pacelli is also accused of being aware of the Holocaust unfolding in Nazi concentration camps, but failing to speak out against it. It has become known that as early as 1942, the Pope received numerous reports about Nazi camps, but did not react to them, claiming he wished to remain impartial. Declassified documents confirm the Vatican's involvement in aiding Nazi fugitives fleeing Europe. Unlearned lessons from history inevitably lead to the rise of new world evil. Concealment and silence about historical crimes pave the direct path to their repetition. Throughout history, all misconduct eventually comes with consequences. Victories often turn into defeats, and conquests result in losses. And today, as humanity possibly stands on the brink of a new world war, it is more important than ever to remember the ominous lessons of history and understand the crucial significance of stopping new evil in its tracks before it has the chance to inflict terrible damage and sorrow upon the peoples of the world. That's all the facts for today. We'll get back to you in a couple days with a new dizzying investigation. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to always be aware of the most mysterious and amazing events of civilization.